Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sattology means science of truth or study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake life or imagination. Thank you for loving all the books on Amazon. When you search Sattology, you'll see all my books and publishers. You can go to the websites and you can check out the articles. And also you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook, where we regularly post talks, in addition to Telegram. I have a very, very special guest, and he's joining from a very special place, the city of Lakshman, and which is also called Lucknow. So let us welcome His Holiness Swami Muktanand Puri. Jai Shri Ram Maharaj.
Yes, sure.
So, Maharaj, tell me one thing. You are in such a beautiful place. I mean, your background is. I just remember India when I go there. Beautiful peacock sounds and nature. How important is this for a spiritual sadhana?
See, when you're alone and you're in silence, that silence after some time, in one of our ashrams, people used to come from the West. And I would find that after 15 days or so, they would relax just by being there. So even if you're doing nothing, if you're just hanging around the place, 15 days is normally enough to relieve you of your stress or the city's noise and sounds and all that, till you come into this quiet place with nature around you and all those birds chirping and greenery and this freshness which you get and the sun, the breeze, the fresh air which you get from nature. We have rice fields over here right behind me. If you can see that lake, it is actually a rice field where rice is growing.
So, how? Now, just honestly, I'm saying, when you do mantra in this kind of place, when you do a swadhyaya, how does it help the mind?
The mind is already peaceful, it's relaxed. There's no disturbance. Normally when you're staying in a city, there are a lot of different energies there because other people are there. So some of them are thinking they have a commercial mind, so there's this commercial energy running through the city. Whereas when you're away from the city and you're in a relaxed environment, in a resort area, your mind is relaxed and you don't have that commercial this thing all around you. You get more in tune with the nature. So that helps you with your, waking up and sleeping cycle and everything else. And then when you get up at the right time to start doing the mantra, there's no disturbance around of somebody else. And the mantra works more effectively, more powerfully. Any practice for that matter, even meditation. This is a great place to meditate also, by the way, not just do mantra.
So, today's topic of discussion was mantra meditation, Kundalini.
You can hear the peacocks, by the way, behind me.
Yes, I can hear peacock. I'm just amazed at the background right now. Today is the best background. It's my backyard also, like this.
Oh, right.
It's at home. When we do the mantra meditation and Kundalini, we spoke about Kundalini a little bit earlier. So how does, in this kind of surrounding, because if you look at Bhagavad Gita, there is a place Krishna says, Shucho Deshe, he says, sit down in a clean place, put kusha grass, and then focus on the middle of the eyebrows towards the nose. Krishna Bhagavan says that. Now,
Yes.
in this kind of place, everything becomes so ideal because your snakes also, you need to kusha grass also.
Yes.
So how does the mantra meditation help in Kundalini in such kind of place first? Because this is the ideal place for doing those kind of things, dhyana.
Actually, the Kundalini is as far as the place is concerned, whenever you're away from the noise and the sound of people, you're always able to do your spiritual practices much better. So that is one part of the issue over here. As far as Kundalini is concerned, which is the interesting topic, actually, I think it is very broadly, greatly misunderstood by people, and there is no proper understanding of the topic. One of the interesting things was that, and I find that a lot of these Americans and Westerners, they have a lot of interest and they want to do research and they try and pick up a lot of people, whoever they hear and see talking about Kundalini. They think that these people must have genuine information. They go and get them. I'm reminded of there was a Kashmiri man by the name of Gopi Krishna, who was I think he died quite some time back, quite some years back. He wrote a few books, and people became very interested in Kundalini, and so they got Gopi Krishna to US eventually. And once he was there, Gopi Krishna, he had actually written 2-3 books, and he'd written these books in a very kind of exotic manner. So one of the interesting things which is there about the Hindu and Indian tradition is that we have all these sannyasis, sadhus, and other people, Brahmins also for that matter, and yet I find that Westerners are often attracted towards these people who actually people like Gopi Krishna, in my opinion, went through a rough time because he didn't have a guru. He was living on his own, and then automatically all of a sudden some of the processes started. He didn't know how to deal with them. He wrote them in very exotic terms. He wrote a whole book in which he says that I was hearing the rushing sound. There was a bolt of light ran up my back. I'm to that effect. There was huge light, and there was inside everything was happening. Shiv and Shakti arose, and all kinds of esoteric stuff which people read, and they kind of get really, really deeply impressed by these things, and give an impression that the Kundalini is something extremely mysterious and all that. So when we are normally learning in a normal process, what happens to us is that our learning process is much slower, because what is happening is that as we are studying, as we are learning, the subtle body, the parts of the subtle body which are preventing us or which are holding certain areas of our mind which are not open, they slowly start opening. So this is actually a very complicated system when you go deep into it, if you understand how the Kundalini really works and what really is there in the Kundalini. Here, a very interesting fact is that the Brahman Vidya, which people understand now in England, for example, UK, what is happening is that a lot of people, that's the impression I get, at least by reading the papers and reading magazines and other things, that in UK there's some kind of a negative emotion against Brahmins, but people don't really understand what a Brahman is and what is called Brahman Vidya or Brahman knowledge and how it really works. So we have these, in the Hindu system, we have these Varn, what is called Varn. Now it is, unfortunately, the term was changed and called caste. When this term was called caste, it kind of put them in 4 slabs, which were not really the case, because they kept moving in and out of the slab, because the original word was Varn. Varn meant a type or a kind of person, or the meaning depending on the profession he followed. Now, Brahmin was a term which came about with Brahma, Brahman, Brahmvidya, Brahmand. There are actually 6-7 words which are common, which are very similar. So the word Brahman is the knower of Brahma, the one who knows Brahma. Now, usually when so we have in India, we have these people, we call them mast. Mast is a person who is sitting in a village or some place, and then suddenly, because of some energy or some change, or because of quietness, or because of previous life birth, of course, all of them put together, which is usually the case, there's a change which takes place, and this person starts receiving divine energy, and he becomes kind of enlightened. And he doesn't have any system, because he was sitting there and this energy came to him just on itself, and by receiving that energy, he became kind of he progressed on the spiritual path, and eventually maybe became close to or enlightened master. There are some who became enlightened, there are others who may not have become enlightened, or may have become enlightened but who stayed by themselves. But he doesn't have any system. So if you go to such a person and you want him to teach you something, he may, by way of having some basic intelligence, or having some divine help, he may be able to transfer some part of it to some other people in some way. But he really did not go through all this in a systematic manner. So when you say a Brahman Vidya means that Brahman knowledge means that anything which is in a systematic manner, because originally when when you look at any lineage or any form of mantra or any other vidya, the origin of that was always from a rishi. The rishi gave a particular system. He named the particular devi or devta of that particular mantra, or they came about when they were meditating, and then they were given the knowledge automatically during their meditations. So rishi word is from the word drishta meaning to see. So the rishi was the one who was able to see, and therefore he saw what this knowledge was. He noted down that knowledge, and then he because he was able to visualize it, see it, not just visualize it. Actually, the right term should be, he was able to absorb this knowledge directly from the source. He received that knowledge directly from the source, so he was able to transmit it in a systematic manner, and he gave the entire system of how to go about to reach this particular process, which is what you will find in all these. We had spoken about Ashtabhara earlier. We had spoken about Kali. If we speak about the Das Mahavidyas, including Sri Vidya, so in this there is something called Kram Diksha, which is a step-by-step system of how you can reach the topmost level, how you have to do the mantra, in what order, how many times, and the whole stuff which goes along with this, and then eventually one reaches this particular level where one finds that one is able to not only learn this and become enlightened himself, but eventually pass on the same knowledge to another disciple, who in turn can again pass on this to another disciple. This is one of the you should say qualities of the word of Tantra. So one is that it's a system. Tantra is a system. Secondly, it's something which is it has an origin, or it had a particular origin from where it came, and then the system continues. So is the continuity. It can be passed on, it can be transmitted. So the continuity is there and the transmission is there. So this transmission goes from one particular Shishya who becomes the Guru, then from that Guru to the Shishya, the disciple, then further on again to he becomes the Guru, and then he passes it on, and so on and so forth. So this lineage thing goes on over a period of time. Unlike that, people like Gopi Krishna and all who landed up, they had no system. Actually, when I originally read his biography and whatever he'd written, it looked to me like what you call a potpourri in English. In Hindi, we say khichdi, where we take dal and rice and mix them together and cook it together. It's all mixed up together. Maybe we add some vegetables and everything else. So it's like a cooked up rice with dal and pulses and everything all in it, all in one. So it is very mixed up. It's not clear cut. One doesn't know exactly, in which direction the person is heading and where he is going, what he is doing, what is his path, what is his clear path, what is his destination. Something is happening, but what is happening is not clear. So this is the sort of thing which has been going on. Later on, of course, if one goes into it, there was another Swami by the same name as mine. His first name was also Muktanand. He used to write it to Muktananda, and he was known as Muktananda Saraswati from a place called Ganeshpuri. Before that, there was another very good sadhu by the name of Swami Vishnu Tirth, who had also come to, both these sadhus had visited US. And in fact, Swami Muktanand Saraswati is for a disciple who, I think she's known as by the name of Chidanandmai Ma or something like that, who is also in the US somewhere. And she's supposed to be very popular. They usually transmit what is called Shaktipat. Now, this is interesting because this term Shaktipat was originally, the system was called Kundalini Jagran. Jagran term means awakening. So it was only Kundalini awakening. The process was a system of awakening the Kundalini. And it was because a guru was doing it, so it was in a controlled manner. It went from one step to another step to a third step. Sometimes a lot of things would happen. And so when I was younger, there was a sadhu by the name of sannyasi, by the name of Swami Karkeshwaran Tirth. He was, to my great fortune, he was a direct disciple of a very great sannyasi, who, apart from being a Kundalini Jagran master, what is typically now called Shaktipat master, was also Dash Mahavidya master. And I had the opportunity to spend some time at his feet also and learn a few things from him. At one time, I recall his eyes were, they were very bright, burning like coals, literally red in color, like live coals. So I asked him, I said, Swamiji, it's very interesting. Your eyes are red, absolutely like live coals, What is it that is making them like that? So he said, oh, actually, when the Kundalini reaches a certain stage, then at that time, the eyes become like that. So they were transmitting this, and somewhere in Swami Vishnu Tirth, somewhere in his private diary or somewhere, he says that he went to visit Swami Muktanand Ganeshpuri, and Muktanand did a Guru Puja for him, and he says at that time he came and sat in with his head on his lap, and he says a huge transmission took place, and then later on he commented, he says Muktanand has taken a lot from me. So there was some link in the lineage. Now, how far this is true, of course, I cannot comment on that. But as far as the story goes, I was told this from this tradition of the Tirth Swamis, and there's a whole group of them who's into this Shaktipat tradition. They have different ways of transmission. Sometimes they transmit through mantra, but sometimes they can transmit through looking at somebody or touching somebody also. But generally speaking, or sometimes they can do it by willpower also. But generally speaking, they prefer to do it by giving a person mantra diksha, and that is how the transmission of energy takes place. And then when they do the mantra, the Kundalini awakens very fast. The problem with or rather I should say the quality of the system is that in this particular system, there are movements in the body when you do meditation, and there are a lot of different people saying different things. In the US, I've read articles and people, making fun of it also. So this is one of the interesting things that happen in the West when people don't understand or when they don't get the desired results. There's often a tendency of ridiculing the process rather than understanding that it was not something which was meant for them, or they don't have to essentially approach it and take it up. So this is some basic background of the Kundalini. Now, the Kundalini energy is, when we call it, we say Kundalini. Basically now, what is happening is when we look at creation, we have these, in Tantra, we have, or Mantra Yoga, we have two of these energies. One is Shiva and the other is Shakti. So we say Shiva is Shav, meaning Shiva is, he's not doing anything. He's simply like almost like inert. He's like dead. Inert is the right word. And Shakti is the active component. It's the energy of Shiv. It's like the difference between fire and the power of the fire to burn. So one really can't differentiate the two. But for the sake of understanding, it is differentiated as the fire which stays in its place, and the heat or the energy emanating from it, which is the energy to burn. So in that sense, this is Shakti, which is emanating from Shiv. So this Shakti is the original, energy which creates things. Now, what happens generally is that when people have physical relations with somebody, at that time they lose that energy, and then there's a misunderstanding somewhere. People say, oh, this Kundalini energy. The Hindus, they talk about being able to stop that sexual energy, and they conserve the energy, and by conserving this energy, then they convert it, they transmute it, they convert it into spiritual energy. But the fact of the matter is, it is the Divine Mother to start with who was the one who started creating this world. And it is this divine energy itself which is in you, which goes through you. And, so in that sense, this divine energy is in simple words, is the one which is coming down. It's the downward moving divine energy. From Shiva, it is coming down into creating this world, and then it creates this world, and it's in you. And then when you're in physical relations with somebody, then at that time the energy goes out and creates a child, and it's a creative energy. In yoga sadhana or in mantra yoga or in any other sadhana which we do, or any other spiritual practice that we do, the idea is to reverse this energy and take it up again to convert it into rising Shakti. So the Shakti, so when this comes downward, this energy is called Maya. It's a downward moving energy which is basically hiding. The job is to hide the reality, hide Shiv, to hide the Brahm Tattva, and to make a projection. So it makes this particular projection. So it is wheeling and projection. That is the power of Maya. So here it is projecting something in front of us, and that projection is the world which we see around us, in which we exist. Now the idea is that when we are praying to the Divine Mother, we are not praying to Maya now. We are praying to the upward rising energy. We're praying to the upward rising energy, asking her that please help us to reach that level from where you started. Take us to Shiv, please. So this is the returning energy that we are praying to. We are not praying to Maya, which is the downward moving energy. So when this downward moving energy is we start conserving this energy, and instead of letting it move downward, we turn the direction and move the energy upwards, and that is the time when this energy starts moving towards a higher a system of developing higher. Now what is happening is that when we, in the normal course of our routine, when we are studying or doing other things, there is some small change taking place. The idea is to make this change fast. So one way of learning is to learn by means of external things by which we are learning, and that learning in turn is making changes in our mind. The idea here is to change your mind straight away. It's not to go outside into the world and learn and thereby change your mind, but it's to go directly into the mind and change the mind, and thereby be able to learn stuff outside faster. Certainly, while the change is taking place, it becomes very difficult to learn because this whole stuff, it's got there's certain structure to it. So this structure is rather difficult to manage, and it's very difficult to understand how this subtle bodies can composed and all that. So broadly speaking, there are two kinds of Kundalini. One is known as Samashti Kundalini, other is known as Vyashti Kundalini. Samashti Kundalini means the out energy, common Kundalini, out the Kundalini which is outside, which is in the whole world. So there is a outward Shakti which is moving upward, which is you can say a public or a common energy which is available to everybody. Then there is a Vyashti Kundalini which is within us. This is the Kundalini which is what we want to tap so that this works fast and it opens us up. And at the same time, we will use support of the Samashti Kundalini by practice of doing mantra or something else or some external help by way of guru or by way of transmission or by way of any other practice which you can do, which will help us. So in the Kundalini, when we speak of the Kundalini, there are 2-3 things which are very, very important to understand. The subtle body is actually structured like a web. It's got a sort of energy webbing. And there are multiple layers of this energy webbing which are there, in which the information is stored. The information is not stored in our brain, because in our mind, or in our brain, in our brain, because which is the physical part. The brain is the physical part of the body, but the mind is the subtle part of the body. So the information actually gets stored in the brain, in the mind, because the mind is where this information is. So this is where you have the basic interactive part, where you interact with people. From this you have what are called the emotions. The emotions are stored in one particular sheet. Then in the next sheet, you have the intellectual thing. So normally you have the, Vijnanamaya Kosh, Manomaya Kosh, and Pranamaya Kosh. Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya Kosh. Manomaya Kosh, in my understanding, is the place, is the particular level where you have the emotions which are stored, and then Vijnanamaya is where from where the basic intelligence or the decision making takes place. In normal course, what happens is that the emotions which are there, these are disturbing us from taking decisions because of past experiences. For example, you were working in the stock market, you put in a lot of money, you lost money because you made a bad decision. And then later on, you were presented with a very good opportunity where it was sure shot that you will make money. But because you had a bad experience, so that fear which you had earlier is not letting you take a clear decision to go ahead, because this emotion is stopping you. So that emotion is a barrier, it's a fear which is there in you because of the previous experience that you had. In the same way, one can give another example of, say, having a lover or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or partner, whoever, and then there was some girl or boy you fell in love with, you really loved this girl or boy, and then when the time came when you were supposed to, maybe you wanted to marry or something, the partner who was the girl or the boy left you and went away. In short, they broke your heart and you were hurt because of the negative emotions. And then later on, somebody else turns up. He or she may be the best person suited for you to go on in your life, but because you had a bad experience in the past, you're not able to take a decision, or you're not able to go ahead with the decision to connect with that person because you have all these negative emotions. So normally, one of the things we do is through the meditation, pranayama, and other techniques. One of the ways is to clear that particular negative energy. But when the Kundalini starts working, so now there are different things about the Kundalini. There are techniques or there are events in some people's life, like Gopi Krishna, for example, where it was not a controlled event. It was an uncontrolled or you can say a violent event in the person's life, where it suddenly opened up rather violently. Whatever the reason may have been, it is very difficult to see. Maybe he was given initiation in a previous life. Maybe he was in a quiet place and something happened. He was also, I believe, he was able to speak or write well in English. I don't know if his original book which he wrote was in Hindi or Kashmiri or Punjabi, which language, or maybe he wrote in English. I'm not sure about that. But he seemed to know English, but he was from not from a very good, very, well-to-do background. He was from a rather poor background. He tried hard to get a job as an officer or something, which he didn't get. And eventually, his father expected him to actually get a job, but he was eventually, I'm told, or at least that's what I read, that he eventually took up a lowly job in some company where he was working as a clerk or something like that. And this process started off from there for him. And so his understanding of the things were rather limited. Unlike today, where we have a lot of information, that information probably was not available to him. And he went through this very violent phase where a lot of things were happening, and he was not in control of himself. He was kind of lost. He didn't know what to do, and not having a guru is a problem, because if he had a guru, then the guru would have told him what to do and how to go about it. But he apparently didn't have a guru. So these are the kind of things there. But then when you start off under a tutelage of a guru or somebody who's gone through this path, then he will give you a process in which the Kundalini will not open violently, it will open slowly. Once in a while, it can become violent for people, even under a guru. That can happen based on previous karma or something like that. But it's normally a rare case, and normally such people also, usually that comes under control if they stop the practice. So I have had I remember I was in Germany and I met a young lady who was commenting that she had a hard time with this Kundalini practice. Somebody had given her an initiation Diksha, and she was having a hard time because there were a lot of violent things happening. But whenever she stopped doing it, nothing would happen to her. And whenever she started, it would happen very violently. So there's a long explanation for that. I won't go into this at this moment. But in short, that is not the thing. That is not something which will happen with 90% of the people, even when they receive the Kundalini Jagran or the Shaktipat initiation. But in the given case, we are talking about mantra. So in mantra, what happens is that the mantra is in your control. So when you start doing the mantra will start working in a controlled manner and start working on your system. So it has two basic functions, like I've explained before. One is to start cleansing and purifying the system, which means that it will start throwing out all these negative emotions. And the second is to energize the system. So it starts energizing, putting in more and more energy. And therefore, when these nettings which are there, they start opening up, then what happens is that your mind develops faster, and your ability eventually, once you've gone through all this process, you are able to learn and understand things at a much faster pace. Now, in the Kundalini system, there are 5 levels of Kundalini. The first level of Kundalini is known as Kriyavati. Kriyavati is, so if you look at the subtle body, here you have these, Panch Koshas. So the first kosha is the physical. So that physical kosha, there is no Kundalini in that. But when you come into the mental body, subtle body, in the subtle body, the first part, which is known as Pranamaya kosha, when that Kundalini awakens, it is known as Kriyavati. Then later on, when that develops further and goes into the emotional level, which is where the upheaval takes place the most, because you have all these emotions which are there. And so this is like, actually, so this is interesting. Chakra, the term you've heard of, all this chakra sadhana and chakra meditation and all kinds of funny words, which are meditation words and all, which are heard in this some kind of style which is there in the Western world, especially. So these chakras which are there, they actually, what is happening is that in the subtle body there are passages from which energy and information is passed. These passages are called nadis in Hindi. In Hindi, Sanskrit, and in Sanskrit, the term has more than one meaning. For example, when you're talking about Ayurveda, in Ayurveda, when we say nadi, at that time we mean the pulse. We're looking at the pulse. Nadi Ved would mean a person who's reading the pulse. It does not mean the subtle, the energy in the subtle, the energy canals in the subtle body. But in the spiritual sense, it always means the energy canals in the subtle body. So these subtle energy canals, they transmit energy as well as information. All the thoughts which you have, they are basically running through these canals. Now, there are some 84,000 according to one text, according to other texts, some 85,000, according to others, there are up to, I think, 245,000 canals, and so on and so forth. So these canals, they come together at some point. Wherever they come together at that point, these are called chakra. Chakra means, in a simple word, it's like a you have these circular go-rounds. So this is like a circular go-round, which is because there all the energy is coming together. It's kind of a junction where all these energies are meeting together. And then from here, they get redistributed. So the chakra by itself has a particular structure. And the Kundalini, when it goes through, because you have these 3 main canals known as the Ida, Pingla, and Sushumna. The Sushumna is the main one which we need, which will take us to enlightenment. The Ida and Pingla don't give you enlightenment. They take you to a certain level. They can be used for various other kriyas, but finally you have to go into the canal, which is the Sushumna, which is the fire canal. So you have fire, and on the left you have Ida, which is lunar canal, and then the right you have the Pingla, which is the solar canal. So these 3 are the main canals, and around them they have a network of other nadis which connect with them. There are actually many other nadis which connect. and then they all meet at this what is known as a chakra. Now, when this energy starts rising, first it will go on the outer layer. This outer layer is the one which is the pranamaya kosha. It goes through the pranamaya kosha, and there it starts cleansing the area, and then it will go eventually into the manomaya kosha. Now, in my experience, and some of the other people I've spoken to, each of these again has three layers in between. So unless you do something violent, like some of the Hatha yoga techniques. Hatha yoga is forced yoga. There are some techniques in which you can force the Kundalini. So if you're doing one of these techniques, and then in one of those techniques, you get a violent reaction, which is not something we want, because we want to be able to do our day-to-day work, day-to-day life, and develop spiritually also at the same time. We don't want to be in a position where we have to leave our daily work and only attend to the spiritual. And then when you go through this, and if it is particularly violent, then in that case one will find that one is not able to do anything at all. So that is not a very good situation to be in, which is why it is best that when this happens in a controlled way. So then there are these three minor layers in between the Manomaya Kosh. And then here when the Kundalini goes in, it is normally called as Kalavati. There's some confusion. Sometimes they have two other words which are used. One is Varnamai and the other is Vedamai. And so they are Kriyavati, Kalavati, Varnamai, Vedamai, and Parakundalini. These are five types of Kundalini which are there. So the first one will go through the Kriyavati, it goes through this particular canal, and the second one will go through the next level of the chakras. And usually if it's a sudden bursting of the chakra, what will happen is the chakra gets shattered. Once it's shattered, then all the information which is there in this chakra, it starts kind of floating out, And if you're one of those people who can feel the energy, then you can feel kind of like all kind of garbage is flowing out. And it's pretty difficult for the person who's going through this, as well as the people who surround them, because it's getting scattered all over, and it can take up to a good 1 year, 1.5 years for this to happen. There are some other systems in which there are initiations, in which directly the chakras can be opened. Some of them I've gone through personally. I was given these initiations, and the chakras would, they would kind of be blasted open at that level, and all this emotional stuff would float out, and it would take a long time, 6 months to 1 year, for that to settle down. And then it would go on the next chakra and the next chakra, and so on and so forth. And then there is a third level where this Varnmaya Kundalini is there, which is the intellectual kosha, which is known as Vigyanmaya kosha. Then further on, it goes into as the Vedamaya Kundalini, which will go into the, now it will cross the subtle body, and it will go into the causal body. And here in the causal body, it starts working, and then eventually when it goes beyond that, it becomes Parakundalini, which will take you beyond and finally connect you. It will be the supracausal body. It will connect you finally to the source. So these are the 5 levels of the Kundalini with that work, and this is the level of the chakras which are there. So the idea in Mantra Yoga and others is that because we have control over it, so when we start doing the practices regularly, so this is an interesting thing for some of you. We have some cows and buffaloes over here, which you can see, which are roaming around in this ashram area behind on the outside. So I thought some viewers might find this interesting. So anyway, so this idea is to control the Kundalini, so that when we work with it, it opens us there are small openings. Small opening means that it's not a harsh, it's not a rash, it's not a violent opening. It's a simple, regular opening, where we find that the opening is at a steady pace, which leaves us in a condition where we are able to work and manage our day also. And at the same time, we are able to develop spiritually. So this is the crux of the Mantra Yoga and Kundalini, topic. And there may be questions which you would like to ask.
What a wonderful presentation and also clear, simple English explanation, which is really important. If you can't explain something concisely, that means you've not understood it or practiced it. So one of the things which the new fad in the West is, the problem sometimes in the West is they try to change everything. So recently there was a goat yoga, very popular in the US, where the goats are walking and people doing meditation on their back. That has become popular. They're one thing I will give them credit is there is sincerity in going beyond their mind intelligence and their false ego. But the point is here is that the spirituality begins when the mind is controlled. Otherwise, it doesn't begin, because you don't see your soul in connection with Paramatma. So how important is the concept of Paramatma in this exercise?
So ultimate goal is Paramatma. It's to become Paramatma. Brahm is the ultimate goal. That's the idea, that the Kundalini will take you there, and that is the time when you will become completely realized, when you will realize that you are Brahman. But the point is that as far as the changing of the things is concerned, the whole beauty of the tradition tradition is that everything is tried and tested. Basically, when you're uh, actually, let's put it like this. There was a management book which was written long back. I can't seem to remember the name well, but it was something about experience of management or something. And in which one of the points the author makes very interestingly is that he says a lot of these companies come in and they create a lot of this new stuff in the market. And they are the ones who launch these products, and then a lot of people will buy them in the beginning, but the whole bulk of the market will not buy them. Now, once they are in the market for 3-4 years, then some good established company will come in, and they will remake this product in a manner, because they've already gone through this 3-4-5 years of testing, and it is made in a manner in which it is something which people can accept. And then at that time, the mass purchasing will take place, where the masses will start buying it, and it becomes a successful project. Successful product, and it is the project is successful, the product is successful, it's money making, and everybody is happy with it, and people are using it. In the same way, when you go into on a spiritual path, the thing is, there's something which is not tried and tested, which is new. So it is like a new product. We don't know what kind of result this will really give. Is it the result that we want? Is it really going to make you develop and go on a spiritual path? Is it really going to give you the outcome that we need? So here in the Hindu system, in our spiritual tradition, we have a system which has been tried and tested for 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 years. Even if you don't look at 5, 7, 10,000 years, say you say 1,000 years also, even 1,000 years is not a small time for something to be tried and tested. Whereas when you have some modern people coming in and trying to say, oh, let us do this kind of yoga, that kind of yoga, they really don't know what they're doing, because this is something new. It looks like yoga, but we don't know. So it's like a flight, taking off. If it has got a small difference of 3 degrees or 4 degrees, it is going to land somewhere else, because there's a 3-degree difference right in the beginning. So it is not landing where it is intended to land. So I think that, and in these cases, some of them, the tilt is, I think, 45 degrees, never mind 2-3 degrees. So it's certainly definitely not landing where it is meant to land, where to take you to enlightenment. So therefore, I really don't see any sense in all these, new systems, because what is tried and tested is sure shot, and this is giving a result. It's been giving a result for several generations. So I would think that it would be sane to pick up something which is tried and tested, and go on that path, rather than to take up an untried and tested method and get into trouble. That is one of the aspects of it. And then about the Brahma Vidya and all that, for the normal person, you see, realizing Brahm, becoming enlightened, it is something everybody must strive for. Everybody must try that they eventually, when they start off on the spiritual path, their attitude should be that I want to become enlightened, I will be enlightened, I must become enlightened, I will try hard to be enlightened, or I will wait for the grace to be enlightened, I will work on being enlightened. But however, when you walk on the path, even if you don't become enlightened, if you are walking on the path in the correct way, then you'll get other benefits, such as discipline, for example. You will get a better mind, a better control over your emotions, a better balance in your life, more compassion, more kindness, ability to mix socially with people, to do better with people. So all these things are something which will come in by way of by the way of doing these spiritual practices. Even if you don't achieve enlightenment, even if you don't understand what is Brahman, or finally become realized with the Brahman as one, even if you don't achieve that, still a lot is to be attained just by doing spiritual practices which have been tried and tested. When you're doing something new, we don't know where it is going to take you. So my recommendation is that do something which is tried and tested.
And also follow the original text, because very clearly Patanjali Yoga Sutra says Dhyan Pranidhan, Ishwar Pranidhan. Very clearly, the focus on Ishwar, which is, he also makes it very clear, it is Paramatma he's referring to. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he is the Paramatma. He says that Uptashta Tumantacha Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. So the point is, follow the original text. rather than inventing something from your own mind that applies to everyone who is on the path of yoga.
Actually, it's not just the text. I'm sorry for interrupting. In fact, when I went to one of the countries for the first time, they asked me, Swami, which text do you read? You know, which book do you read? I told them I don't read any book. I mean, what book should I read? Why should I read a book? Because I've been passed on everything from the tradition. The tradition taught me what to do, what not to do. So there's no question of reading a text and going by the text. You know, it is what the Guru says, we do that. We follow the Guru's directions and orders. We do exactly what he's saying. So that is the way to achieve short success. If you start, even if you open a many texts and you start reading them, in India, we have a huge number of texts. And sometimes the texts also contradict each other. So therefore, having a text and doing something on your own is a DIY experiment. It's not a successful experiment in my humble opinion. I would recommend and suggest that people should follow a guru.
You know, Tattvadarshi, Tadvidhi Pranipatena, Krishna says, but Krishna also says in 16th chapter, Ye Shastra Vidhi Mutsrijya Vartate Kamakarta. One who rejects the Shastra, he cannot get any Siddhi nor a supreme destination. So both things Krishna has said.
We are not saying that the Shastra has to be rejected. What we are saying is that the Shastra alone, if you get the hold of the Shastra, you cannot become successful by getting the Shastra, because the Shastra is difficult to understand. You can make your own interpretations or read interpretations for somebody. Usually the gurus and sadhus, sannyasis, Brahmins, whoever has this knowledge, he will not write everything that he knows in the explanation or commentary also. He will keep a lot of stuff, you know, not necessarily willingly, but often because he's not able to transmit it. So therefore, you can, the only way you can learn the Shastra also, because when we look at the Hindu tradition, we talk about four things. We talk about Shastra, we talk about self-experience, we talk about the Guru tradition, the master, and we talk about logic. All four should fall in place. Only then we accept something. So that is a slightly different discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for joining and giving us a view of your Lucknow ashram, and beautiful ashram. And thank you for all the viewers for joining and listening and attentively listening. I can see everyone is there, increased, the audience is increased. So namaskar and thank you. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. Thank you for having me.
Namaskar.